In the mountains of Canada, there's a place where people went looking for gold and didn't come back. Some disappeared, some were found dead, and others returned with just one warning: don't go back. The story begins with a man who was executed in 1891. Before he died, he said something that no one forgot. He claimed he knew where the gold was, a hidden source, rich enough to make a man wealthy for life. His name was Slumach, and after his death, people started searching. For more than a century, they kept going into the mountains, looking for the same thing, and many of them never found it. Very little is known for certain about Slumach. He lived in British Columbia, in a region filled with rivers, forests, and mountains. British Columbia. In 1891, he was arrested and later executed for murder. But what made his story different was what people said he knew. According to accounts from the time, Slumach had access to gold. Not small amounts, not random finds, but something more consistent. A location, a source. Some believed he had discovered a hidden deposit somewhere in the wilderness, a place he kept secret, and when he was captured, he refused to reveal it. Even at the end, there are claims that just before his execution, he hinted at the existence of gold, but never gave a clear location. No map, no directions, nothing that could be followed. And that was enough, because once the idea spread, it created a question no one could ignore. What if the gold was real? After the execution of Slumach, the story spread quickly through British Columbia. British Columbia. At first, it was just talk, stories shared between miners. Rumours passed through camps and small towns. But in places shaped by gold rushes, rumours don't stay rumours for long. They turn into action. The first men who went looking were experienced prospectors, people who knew how to read terrain, how to follow rivers, how to survive in the wilderness. They focused on one region, the remote valleys and rivers near Pitt Lake. Pitt Lake, it was a difficult place to reach. Dense forest, steep mountains, limited access. But that also made it perfect. If someone wanted to hide a rich source of gold, that's where they would do it. The early searchers didn't go blindly. They followed fragments of information, old stories, possible routes, places where gold had been seen before. Some claimed they found signs, traces of gold in rivers, unusual rock formations, areas that looked promising, but none found the source. Still, that didn't stop them, because in gold hunting, one thing matters more than proof: possibility. At first, the risk seemed normal, the kind that come with wilderness exploration: injuries, exposure, getting lost. But over time, something changed. People started disappearing. Not one, not two. Enough that it became part of the story. Searchers who went into the mountains and never returned. Some were later found. Bodies discovered in remote areas, far from any clear path. Others were never found at all. And the deeper people went into the region around Pitt Lake, the more dangerous it became. Pitt Lake, the terrain was unforgiving. Steep cliffs, unstable ground, fast-moving rivers, thick forest that made navigation difficult. It was easy to get trapped, easy to get lost, easy to run out of supplies. And yet, people kept going, because by now, the story had changed. It was no longer just about gold. It was about something hidden, something real enough that men were willing to risk everything to find it. By the early 1900s, the story of Slumach had turned into something more than a rumour. People believed it, not because of mystery, but because of what they were finding. In the rivers and streams near Pitt Lake, searchers occasionally reported traces of gold. Pitt Lake, not large amounts, but enough to raise a serious question. If gold is here. Where is it coming from? Gold doesn't appear randomly. It comes from a source. And if small amounts were being found downstream, then somewhere upstream there had to be more, possibly much more. There were also stories from individual prospectors. Men who claimed they had seen rich deposits. Men who said they had found promising locations, but couldn't relocate them again, or refused to share the exact spot. Some accounts described unusually high-quality gold, hidden creeks, narrow valleys that were difficult to access. None of these claims were ever confirmed, but they were consistent, and consistency creates belief. By this point, people weren't just chasing a legend. They were following evidence, small pieces, incomplete, but enough to suggest that something real existed in those mountains. As the years passed, the search changed. It became more intense, more focused, and for some people, more personal. Men returned to the same area again and again. They mapped the terrain, tracked rivers, marked locations where gold had been found. Some spent months in the wilderness, others spent years, living out of camps, moving deeper into the mountains, trying to connect the clues. The story began to take on a pattern. Someone would claim they were close, that they had found something, that they were about to discover the source. And then, nothing. They would leave, disappear, or return empty-handed. And still, more people came, because the logic was simple. If even a small part of the story was true, then the reward would be enormous. Enough to justify the risk. Enough to justify the time. Enough to justify going further than anyone else had. And that's exactly what people did. They went further, deeper, into a place where mistakes were not easily forgiven. By the time decades had passed, the search for Slumach's gold had already built a reputation, not just as a treasure hunt, but as a place where people died. The area around Pitt Lake became known for failed expeditions. Searchers who underestimated the terrain, or pushed too far, or stayed too long. Some never made it back. Others were found later, dehydrated, injured, lost in areas far from any known trail. There were also accounts of experienced prospectors who entered the mountains fully prepared and still failed to return. That changed how people saw the search, because this wasn't just beginners making mistakes. This was happening to people who knew what they were doing. Over time, the danger became part of the story itself. Not exaggerated, not myth, just a pattern. The deeper people went into those mountains, the higher the risk became. And yet, the search didn't stop. After more than a century of searching, one fact remains unchanged. No one has ever confirmed the location of Slumach's gold. There have been claims, many of them. Some searchers said they found rich deposits. Others claimed they had discovered hidden creeks. A few believed they had located the exact source. But none of these discoveries were ever verified. No consistent production. No active mine. No confirmed location. Nothing that proves, beyond doubt, that a large gold deposit exists in the area. Part of the problem is the terrain. The wilderness near Pitt Lake is vast and difficult to navigate. Dense forest, steep valleys, repeating landscapes, limited visibility. Even small navigation errors can lead someone miles away from their intended path. And once you're off course, finding your way back is not guaranteed. Another issue is time. The landscape changes, trails disappear, landmarks shift, which means that even if someone once found something, they might not be able to find it again. And if they couldn't return to it, then no one else could either. More than a century after the execution of Slumach, the search has never fully stopped, but it has changed. Today, the region around Pitt Lake is still remote, but no longer completely unexplored. Modern searchers arrive with tools that early prospectors never had. GPS mapping, satellite imagery, drones, geological surveys. Some teams study historical records, trying to reconstruct their original clues. Others focus on geology, searching for areas where gold deposits are more likely to exist. And still, from time to time, someone claims they are close. They say they found traces. They believe they've located the source. But just like before, nothing is confirmed. No verified discovery. No documented mine. No gold rush triggered by a real find. Despite all modern technology, the result has not changed. So what was Slumach's gold? There are two main possibilities. The first is that the gold is real. That Slumach de Ikatkoi Esteve Etayel Yuri knew the location of a rich deposit, a hidden source somewhere in the mountains, difficult to reach, easy to lose. If that's true, then the gold could still be there, untouched, waiting. The second possibility is simpler. The story grew over time. Small discoveries became larger. Details changed. Clues were misinterpreted, and what began as a limited amount of gold turned into something much bigger in people's minds. There's also a third possibility, that the gold existed, but was never large enough to justify the search, or was found in small amounts and never properly documented. Each explanation fits part of the story, but none explain everything, and that uncertainty is exactly what keeps people coming back. More than 100 years have passed. No confirmed mine, no proven location, no final answer. But the mountains are still there, the rivers are still there, and every so often, someone goes back, searching the same valleys, following the same clues, believing they might be the one to finally find it. Because as long as there is even a chance that the gold exists, the search will continue. Which leaves one question. If you knew where to start, would you go into those mountains, knowing that others believed they were close, and never found what they were looking for? Or worse, never came back?